You know what's genuinely delicious, sweetheart? Not the punchline, the pause before it. That little hitch in your chest when you realize the joke was about you the whole time. See, there's a very serious, very organized little tea party happening right now. Behind doors you didn't even know had locks. And your name is the only thing on the menu. Let that marinate. A bona fide, members-only syndicate of very important nobodies sat down in a room with leather chairs and bad intentions and made a decision about you. And oh, honey, it did not go according to their precious little plan. They thought they had you measured, mapped, and mathematically accounted for. They were off. Not by a little, by about 200%. That's not a miscalculation, that's a demolition. And the distance between what they expected and what actually showed up? That distance is why somebody's bourbon is shaking in their glass tonight, instead of sitting still. You shocked them, not inconvenienced them, not gave them a mild case of Sunday anxiety, shocked them. The kind of shock that rewires what a person thinks is on the table. And now, instead of looming over you the way they'd rehearsed in their bathroom mirrors, they are pressed flat against the far wall, eyes wide, watching you from a distance, terrified of whatever's humming underneath the version of you they thought they were managing. I need you to sit inside that for a beat, darling. Really live in it. Because here's the thing, most people tuned in right now are going to feel this next part in their bones. Even if they've never spent a single second thinking about cabals or shadow boards, or any of that spooky backroom business. You don't have to buy into the conspiracy. You just have to notice what happens in your body. That little electric flicker. When I say, somebody underestimated you, and it wrecked them. Wrecked them in a way they still haven't rebuilt from. Because that feeling already has a room in your house. You already know what it tastes like to be quietly scratched off someone's list by people who had zero idea what was sitting across the table from them. So, let me walk you through the architecture here, and I want you to just let it sink like a stone in still water, instead of scrambling to fact-check it with your rational brain. Because the feeling underneath, that's the load-bearing wall. That's where the truth lives. There's a circle I keep catching in my peripherals, a closed loop. People who operate in rooms with no windows, somewhere tucked away, somewhere invitation only, and the guest list hasn't been updated since your grandparents were in diapers. Small, tight, old. The kind of operation that's been running the same playbook so long they forgot what improvisation smells like. They got comfortable. They stopped expecting anyone to do anything interesting. And then, at some point, you drifted across their radar. Maybe you didn't even clock it. Maybe you were just out here grinding, healing, leveling up, getting a little more solid in your own skin every single day. A little more unshakable. A little more you. And somewhere along that quiet grind, your signal got bright enough to ping the monitors of people whose entire gig is watching for exactly that frequency of energy. You're getting comfortable, and that's a mistake. Your past is a weapon, if you know how to swing it. My book, The Evolution of the Anomaly, is your training manual. Grab it from the description or pinned comment of this video. Now let's get back to why you're really here. Now here's what you got to understand about outfits like this, love. They do not like surprises. No cap. Their entire operation depends on knowing how the movie ends before the opening credits. They're the ones who decide who climbs and who gets buried. So when they clocked you, I don't think their first move was hostile. I think it was amused. Almost cute, really. Like, who does this one think they are? There's a smugness baked into groups like this, a kind of inherited swagger that says nobody outside the velvet rope could possibly scratch their paint job. So they decided to test you, see what you were made of, And what they did, from what I'm picking up, was they dialed something up. Not figuratively. They reached back and grabbed something ancient, something heavy as a cathedral bell, something they dropped on people before to knock them right back into line. A slow, suffocating kind of pressure. The kind designed to make a person shrink, glitch, lose their footing, spiral into silence. They were entirely confident it would work, because it had worked on everyone before you. Every single one. And it didn't work. It didn't work. You want to know what part actually makes my skin crawl? And listen, I'm a man with a very high tolerance for the theatrical. It's not that you survived it. People survive things all the time. That's Friday. That's the bare minimum. That's the cover charge. What unsettles me is that you didn't just weather what they hurled at you. You drank it. You swallowed something that was engineered to shatter a person, and you turned it into rocket fuel. Whatever tonnage they dropped on your shoulders, it didn't flatten you. It compressed you into something denser, something that takes up less space and weighs about 10 times more. And they watched it happen, live, in real time. Popcorn not included. They watched the exact weapon they were so sure would shut you down. Instead, make you sharper, steadier, more certain of who you are than you were before they ever started poking. That's the moment the temperature in that little room dropped. That's the moment somebody loosened their tie. Because now, they don't know what you are. That's the real headline. Forget, group tried something and took the L. The real story is, a group tried something, took the L, and has no working hypothesis for why. They straight up do not have vocabulary for you anymore. The filing system they normally use to sort people, easy mark, credible threat, irrelevant. None of those drawers open wide enough. You broke the ruler. And when people who are addicted to control lose their ability to measure something, the panic that generates is a very specific, very bone-deep flavor of dread. It's not, this person might hurt us. It's, we do not understand what we're dealing with, and not understanding is the most exposed we have ever been. Something keeps tugging me toward your roots, your bloodline, the people who came before you. And I'm not doing some vague, you come from warriors, motivational poster thing. I mean something specific is sitting here. It's like whatever they summoned to test you accidentally tripped a wire they didn't know existed. Like the weight they laid on you traveled through you and knocked on a door further back. Something older, something that had been sleeping underneath your whole existence, patient as a loaded spring. Ancestors. People tethered to you by blood or by something thicker than blood. People who survived their own editions of being underestimated, tested, shoved to the brink by machinery bigger than they were. And instead of staying archived in the past, that history lit up the second you needed backup. That's part of why what they threw at you didn't land clean. You were not standing there solo, beautiful. You just didn't know yet how deep your roster went. And I want to be real with you about something else I'm picking up, because it's got weight, and I think you need to hear it raw instead of me wrapping it in bubble wrap. There's a version of this story where, at some point before all of this, you were standing next to real danger, not metaphorical danger, the kind that has teeth, like you were close to people or caught in a current that wanted to drain you, your energy, your attention, your trust, maybe more. And you got out. You slipped the net. Maybe you don't even fully remember how razor-thin the margin was. Maybe it shows up now as an unexplained alertness around certain people, certain rooms, certain varieties of charm that register as slightly off, even when you can't articulate why. That instinct isn't glitching. That instinct is a wound, doing exactly what wounds are supposed to do, keeping you alive. You were supposed to be bled dry by something, and instead you walked out with your pulse still yours. And that exit, that's one of the reasons this little society has been orbiting you ever since. People who specialize in taking don't forget the one who slipped the leash. They keep vigil. They keep sniffing for a second opening, and every single time they've circled back around, hasn't gone how they wanted. Not even close. Now here's where it gets properly weird, sunshine, because this part matters more than the whole conflict itself. The reason they kept losing isn't because you fought harder than they budgeted for. It's because you stopped fighting the way they expected you to fight. At some point, and you probably know exactly which chapter of your life this was, you went through something that should have wrecked you, should have turned you bitter, brittle, closed off, small. And instead, you did the thing almost nobody pulls off. You let it actually reshape you instead of just calcifying you. You grieved. You felt the loss all the way to the basement instead of boarding up the windows. You sat in the ugly rooms of yourself instead of running. You forgave people who didn't earn it, not for their sake, but because hauling around the resentment was taxing you more than it was taxing anyone else. That kind of healing is endangered species level rare. It's so rare that people who deal in control and manipulation literally have no counter-strategy for it. Their entire playbook assumes people stay triggered, stay bleeding, stay easy to anticipate. A healed person, a truly healed person, is the one variable their operating system was never coded to handle. So picture them now. Go ahead, picture the room. A handful of people accustomed to being the apex predator in every room they walk into, sitting there cycling through everything in their toolkit. Every old trick, every legacy technique that's landed 100 times before, and watching it all just bead up and roll off you like oil on glass. I keep seeing this image of people frantically rifling through ancient playbooks and dusty notebooks, getting more frantic with every page, because the one explanation they refuse to entertain is the actual truth. You are simply operating on a frequency their instruments were never built to detect. They engineered an entire apparatus to manage people who live in fear. You stopped being afraid somewhere along the way, and the second that happened, you became invisible to every tool in their shed. And listen, I don't think they hate you. That might be the most uncomfortable part. Underneath all the scrambling and the war room energy, there's something closer to fascination, almost a kind of hunger. Because that thing you carry, that stillness, that clarity, that's something in you that doesn't buckle under pressure anymore. That's exactly what people who chase power are actually starving for, and never seem to find, no matter how much control they stockpile. You have the thing influence and status and secrecy cannot purchase. So part of what's happening right now is envy wearing a Halloween mask of hostility. They keep lobbing pressure at you because some sliver of them is praying that if they push hard enough, you'll finally give up the recipe. How you stay this grounded, how nothing they launch seems to stick. There's something else I keep catching, something about timing, a ticking clock energy on their end that wasn't there before. It's like they've started to feel that their window is closing, like whatever shielded them for years, secrecy, leverage, the cozy assumption that nobody outside their bubble could ever outpace them. That shield is wearing thin. People in that position start to feel expiration differently. Not just the body kind, the structural kind. When the whole empire you built your identity on starts showing hairline fractures, it feels like dissolution. Even when nothing tangible is crumbling yet. That's the vibe I'm catching off them right now. Not poise, not command. Something closer to 3 a.m. dread. The kind where you're staring at the ceiling, and you can't explain to a single soul why you're suddenly this unsettled. Meanwhile, and this is the part I really, really want you to let in, treasure. You're over here becoming more of yourself every day, almost on autopilot. You didn't have to go full villain to survive this. You didn't have to download their tactics or play their game on their court. You just kept healing. You kept drawing lines that used to feel impossible. You kept choosing rest over retaliation, clarity over chaos, your own peace over the cheap high of proving a point. And it turns out that was the most devastating move on the whole board the entire time. Your boundaries became your armor. Your calm became your weapon. Your refusal to be baited became the one variable they could never architect around. Because every strategy they had assumed, you'd react the way hurt people typically react. You didn't. You responded like someone who already had the receipt for their own worth. And that response has been quietly disassembling their entire operation from across town, without you so much as raising your voice. I'd also want to name something that might feel too soft to say out loud, but it keeps pushing through. Part of why this group has been so magnetized to you in the first place is your innocence. Not gullibility, not weakness, a kind